Take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health genius who never studied health or medicine or biology or anything of that nature, the expert in not being an expert in any of those things. His Health and Human Services Department has just released their report, their Make America Healthy Again report, which a focus on children. So the idea of this report was to identify the causes of chronic disease in children. And then in the summer, supposedly in August, they're supposed to offer another report that suggests policies to deal with some of these problems and root causes of chronic disease that RFK Jr. was supposed to identify. So while that sounds great, and RFK Jr. is an interesting figure because on the face of it, a lot of the things that he says he wants to do sound good. And there's even something about him, despite the fact that if you know what a snake oil salesman looks like, he comes pretty close to fitting the description. Despite that, there does seem to be something about him that makes you ask, why would he be doing this if he didn't have genuine intentions to make something better, to fix something? He doesn't come off as the average greedy grifter type, although I would say that that's kind of the pocket that he has fit into in his career, and that certainly seems to be the pocket he's fitting into now. But the other thing about him is that a lot of this stuff that he's saying, whether it's the stuff about vaccines or chemicals, is stuff that we've heard in various, dark corners of society for a long time. And that's not to disparage all of those claims. My point is that the reason a lot of people connect with RFK Jr. is not only because he has Kennedy in his name, but because he's saying a lot of things and he's voicing a lot of theories that have been around for a long time, and that there's a certain contingent in the population that is pretty sure of the truth of these things. For example, fluoride being some means of degrading your health, or the thing about vaccines causing autism. This is RFK Jr.'s forte. It's what he believes in more than anything else, and it is what he leveraged himself a position at HHS with Trump to get. So he wanted to do this overhaul of the healthcare system in America, and now he seems to be getting the tools to do that. We'll see what happens. The White House has asked for $500 million or something to that tune for this project, which in government terms isn't that much money, but they're arguing over the budget right now, so we'll see how much of that comes out in the wash. The point is that it seems like RFK during the election was negotiating from a pretty powerful position in Trump's eyes, and so Trump, in, I would say, unusual Trump fashion, is giving that guy a lot of leeway. He is really fulfilling his deal to RFK Jr., which is to let him have full control over health and human services. So, in this report, we'll get into some of the substance and some of the things that were questionable about it, but the most important, the most glaring issue about this report is that in a few cases, it cites reports incorrectly, or it cites reports that don't even exist. And this is the final report that was made public. The White House has acknowledged this already, said they're going to fix it. The White House has referred to these as formatting errors. Though there were some formatting errors in this, it's still a transformative health report, blah, blah, blah. These are not formatting errors. This is citation. So in other words, key claims that are being made in this report are connected to citations that are either misappropriations of what is said in the actual report, or flat out is just a report that doesn't exist. It's fabricated. So that is interesting to me because I think it's pretty clear that what happened there is that, much like a lot of the other stuff that they're doing in the administration, they used AI to put this together, because that is familiar to me as one of the behaviors of these AIs, particularly Grok. I did a video not that long ago about Grok and how I've used it a little bit, and so I know that one of the things that it does is it tells you that a certain thing is in a source or a citation. It'll give you a link. If you ask it for citations, it'll give you them. But if you click on the link, most of the time when you click on the link, you find it doesn't go anywhere. There's a problem with the link. Okay, that's interesting. Then you search the substance of what was in the link, like the little title that appears at the end of the link. You search that. Then maybe you'll find the article, and for some reason the link just didn't connect directly to it. Or in some cases, you'll find that article doesn't exist, that the AI quite literally made up a citation. So I saw that a couple times, and what I mentioned in the video that I made was that it was misappropriating citations. So basically it was taking information from low quality sources and attributing them to high quality sources. So that is a very, very deceptive and extremely unreliable thing for a piece of information technology to be doing. Now, anybody who knows a little bit about these AIs already knows that that's how they work. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there about how these things work. A lot of people think that they are designed to give you accurate information, and that these AIs are thinking and they're deducing and weighing different pieces of information in the way that humans would across the internet to give you the most accurate citation, answer to your question, noodle recipe, whatever it is that you're trying to get. And what a lot of people don't realize is that it's actually just designed to give you an answer. The whole thing is that it's a chatbot, so it's basically prompting you back. You give it a prompt, and it's attempting to prompt you. So it's trying to give you exactly what you wanted out of it, and then get you to continue interacting with it. That's its job. And so a lot of times when you examine the details of what it's given you, you find that it's not true. Some of it's made up. Sometimes it fudges the details. Some of what it says doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it'll misappropriate things and kind of quote them in a way that means the opposite of what it really meant, because the AI gets confused, because all it's doing is predicting what order to put words in based on, yes, a huge data set that basically references it back to real information, articles, and different things that are available on the internet, scientific reports. So it is cross-referencing amongst a vast database of information, but what it's giving you is not necessarily meant to be the most accurate version or the most defensible version of that information. So why is all that relevant here? Because the Trump administration multiple times now has been basically caught putting out stuff that reflects these same flaws in the designs of AI. A lot of the executive orders that Trump has signed had confusing language in them and like weird nonsense paragraphs, which are also, classic AI stylization, like a lot of fluffy words that don't mean anything, or sometimes just like straight up nonsense that looks like it means something. And also people pointed out that the tariff proposal, the original tariff proposal that was, supposedly equalizing tariffs across the board between America and other nations, people pointed out that it was pretty clear that they just asked ChatGPT to balance out the trade deficits between America and different countries. And if you go through and you look at all of those original tariff numbers that were proposed, many of which didn't make sense, a couple of which were attributed to countries that we don't do trade with, and you'll find that those numbers they're not done in a way that's meant to make sense for U.S. policy and, take the different factors of the economy into account. But it's literally just a straightforward math equation to so-called balance the tariff deficit. So the point is that this is a terrible way to do any kind of policy. It shows that the people who are behind the scenes doing these policies are exactly who you would think they are in the Trump administration. It's a bunch of young, just out of college staffers who chat GPT'd their way through college. They finagled their way into these positions. They're tasked with finding citations and doing the sort of busy work that staffers are supposed to be doing at the HHS or other places in the administration. And yet, instead of being held to a standard where somebody is going to check to make sure the stuff is accurate, checking to make sure that they're citing things properly, or anybody who's going to cross-reference with the knowledge of science or what is ultimately going to end up in the report, a lot of those people are gone. So you have cronies behind the scenes, and you have douchey college kids like the Doge kids who don't see any problem with using Grok or ChatGPT on these reports. And so they're not expecting anybody to look into it. They're not expecting it to be a problem. And they're also not really expecting the AI to give them any trouble with this. They don't know that it's this bad. Either they don't know or they don't care. Probably a little bit of both. But there are many, many people out there who think that these programs are designed to give you accurate information. And so these staffers are clearly just offloading this work onto the AIs, getting inaccurate information back, and then putting that out. So why does that matter? It matters because we were probably going to end up in this position inevitably. Okay, if Kamala Harris got elected, and she would have a bunch of young staffers as well, and there would probably be inaccuracies in there. There would probably be idiots using ChatGPT and other dumb things like that. That would be scandals. And it is true that would be an enormous scandal if somebody in Kamala Harris's administration had done it. Whereas with Trump, nobody's even going to talk about it from this angle. But it's more about the time that we're in than the administration itself. But the difference with the Trump administration is there's nobody. They fired all of the people at every step of the ladder, every position that is designated to catch these very mistakes. This is the Department of Health and Human Services. There are definitely people who are supposed to stop inaccuracies in this report. There are people who are paid a good amount of money every year just to make sure that reports like this don't go out with inaccuracies in it. Why? Because if the government is putting out inaccurate information, people could die because of that. So not only did they use AIs to gather all this information, they didn't even check it. Nobody even double checked. That's insane. And so a lot of what this report is about is, like I said, chronic illness and trying to point to the root causes of chronic illness. So obviously it's RFK Jr. So they're pointing at things like ultra processed foods, kids being over medicalized, chemicals, vaccines, these, as well as I think phone radiation and stuff like that. Some of these things are cited with good information. Some of them are not. Some of them are just claims that are made erroneously with no citation, even made up citations. They just aren't cited at all. Like the idea that vaccines are a cause of chronic disease. There's just no citation for that. There's no information behind that whatsoever. And people are also criticizing that this does not mention some of the key factors in chronic disease, things like cigarette smoke, alcohol. It doesn't mention the two leading causes of death in children, which is vehicles and firearms. So this is very important to note, because what it means is that the administration, obviously, under RFK Jr., this is not about putting out the most accurate information and reassessing all of this stuff to find out if it's true or not. That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is they're trying to shift the narrative to different things. So they don't want to report on car deaths and chronic disease caused by alcohol or tobacco. They want to move away from talking about stuff like that to talk about the stuff that RFK Jr. is more interested in targeting. It's still not clear if RFK plans to regulate these companies. He's talked about red dye 40 and other chemicals and additives that he wants to ban effectively. And yet the Trump administration is anti-regulation. And one of the key things that is mentioned in this report is capture by the pharmaceutical industry and by like the food industry and chemical processing interests and that sort of thing. And so that's accurate to point to those and say that they have capture in Congress, and that that's the reason that, you know, Americans' health has deteriorated so much. There's a lot of truth to that. And so it's good to target those companies. But if you're not, first of all, if your administration is anti-regulation in the first place, then it's going to be hard for you to make the argument for any new regulations. And even if you get some through, how many? I mean, regulations have to be robust and they have to be enforceable. And so if the administration has gotten rid of all of the means for different agencies to enforce their regulations, which are not laws passed by Congress, these are regulations. So what leverage does RFK Jr. have with these gigantic, enormous corporations that he supposedly wants to go against and do away with? You know, I mean, they specifically point to moneyed interests in politics in this report and how that affects, health and chronic illness. And so good luck getting anywhere. That's where your influence stops in the Trump administration, RFK Jr. You got pretty far. Definitely would not have gotten put in HHS if you had went with the Democrats. Never would have happened in a million years. But if there's one thing that you're not going to be able to convince the Trump administration to do, it's to get money out of politics at any level of politics. It's just not going to happen. So given that RFK Jr.'s agenda is allowed to move forward, at least most of it, and he reshapes the sort of health and political situation around health, not health care, but health in general, the things that go into our food, the chemicals that go into the soil, whatever. If RFK Jr. is allowed to do the things that he wants to do when it comes to that, what I think is the most likely outcome is not some kind of incredible change and transformation in the health of Americans. What is more likely is that the political power is going to shift to new cottage industries in the, holistic medicine realm and that sort of thing. And those interests are going to become very powerful. And people like RFK Jr. and those who are in his orbit, working directly underneath him and further underneath him, those are going to be the people who start to move through the revolving door of some of these, bullshit huckster holistic medicine companies. And they're basically going to use that established revolving door between their industry and the government to legitimize their products, probably get FDA approvals, and start to reframe the approaches to certain health issues to favor those companies and to create demand for the products that they serve. So this is not about making Americans healthier, because if RFK Jr., all the kookiness included, if his goal was really to make things better, he would not undermine science and scientific journals and the legitimacy of established science in the way that he has. And if he had something better to replace that with, then there would be an argument that he is doing some kind of overhaul to the establishment of science, which is going to lead to more flexibility and adaptability in the ability of government and pharmaceuticals to meet the needs of people and to actually cure people. But that's not going to happen, because just like anything with Trump and his people, they have nothing. They want to destroy things because they hate government, they hate regulation, they hate the idea of government providing health care, for example, but they have nothing better to replace it with. They have no ideas for how to do the system better because they don't actually know how the system works. So they're very great at removing people, they're great at creating chaos, they're great at creating a spectacle. But what they're not good at is creating a government structure in the wake of what they have destroyed. And in the case of RFK Jr., probably what we're going to see is the flourishing of, scam holistic medicines that don't help anybody but claim to cure everything. And there's going to be no shortage of suckers who find themselves caught in that hamster wheel. And so while it is accurate to point out that people get caught in the hamster wheel of the American healthcare system, the selling point there is that the medicine works. It might not cure you, and maybe there are some curable diseases that are not cured because of profit motive reasons. But at the end of the day, if you're caught in that hamster wheel, that's at least a system that works. All of the medicines and the things that you're getting work the way they're supposed to. And the plan that RFK Jr. has for you is to replace that with a bunch of things that don't work how they're supposed to and are going to have way more adverse effects, which is going to put us in a much more chaotic and dangerous position health-wise, probably for a long time. So, happy Friday. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm posting different kinds of exclusive content there, like podcasts that don't make it to the main channel. Also music. I've got a new EP out right now called Dead Internet Theory, which is now available on all platforms. And that was available first for members only. I also re-released a previous EP called Spaceman Spliff. That's available now on the main channel with a bonus track included. And that was also available first for members only. So if you're interested in early access to music and other things like that, go ahead and hit that follow button. Go ahead and become a member. And if there's other types of content that you'd like to see as exclusive content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.